Taiwan index, that's down 0.3%. Hang Seng is down 0.3% as well.
The markets are awaiting Trump 2.0. That's the big theme.
The CASA ratio is at 38 quarter or more low.
The companies reported a revenue growth of 6.6% on a year-on-year basis. Revenues were ahead of street expectations. The company reported a constant currency revenue growth of 1.7%.
At 23,277, we're down about 0.15%. Bank Nifty is down about 0.5%.
Well, the proposal is currently under active discussions between North Block and the PMO.
And now things are looking ugly on the screen. It's a deep shade of red.
भारत की ऑटोमोटिव इंडस्ट्री फैंटास्टिक भी है और फ्यूचर रेडी भी है.
And this is a future Lexus concept vehicle which is being showcased.
Bulls will hope to end the week on a high note, but at this point of time, it's a steep recovery that will be required.
Sharpest strategies, top market trends, unmatched perspectives. The trading day's most comprehensive roundup. Stay ahead with NSE Closing Bell. Broadcasting live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal Studios in Mumbai.
Well, that is the day so far. Markets, of course, looking under pressure, but it's not a big cut or anything of that sort. It's just sort of, biding time till you actually have, I think, we're talking about a T-2 now, T-1 day and 1 hour to go in terms of Trump taking over. So just a holding pattern, nothing more, nothing less. But there's enough and more big stock action which we will address over the next 60 minutes or so. You're with us here on Closing Bell. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surabhi and Nigel. Guys, hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, folks. So, Prashant, what are your bets? 60% tariffs just after the inauguration?
I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. I mean, that's the most disruptive of the scenarios. I think it'll be more gradual.
I also think so. And remember, Trump is a businessman before being a president. So I think, the measures that he'll take will not hurt the economy. And remember, at one point of time, he was betting on Mike Tyson. In the 1990s, he put some big money out there. So he knows, what's hot, what works. And I think the last thing he wants is to see is, a meltdown in the US markets out there. And the book doesn't support it, right? The debt is high. You can't let inflation move up as well out there. So
Make
put
America
it together. I'm betting
again.
on Trump being peak Trump we have seen, as Prashant has been saying. And now we'll see, more
Let's see. But, anyway, quickly just on the market, it's still a 90-point decline, but the midcaps have had a better day. We'll get you more on the markets in just a bit. But first up, an interesting headline that's coming in from the Auto Expo, the Bharat Mobility Expo, as it's now being called. In fact, Maruti has unveiled its first electric SUV, the e-Vitara, at the Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2025. The SUV is set to launch in March and will be the only model in its segment to offer an all-wheel drive. My colleague Parikshit Luthra caught up with Hisali Teikuchi, the MD of Maruti Suzuki, to understand more about this new launch, which the market is also waiting keenly to see if it really ups the ante in the SUV space.
First of all, this e-Vitara is a ground up, everything new. So this is not just changing the IC engine to the motor and the battery. The ground up, this is all new. So this platform is all new platform to optimize the performance of this car as EV. And this is, according to the view
Okay,
of...
so let's keep moving towards the front as you talk. Yeah.
In line with the view of Prime Minister Mr. Modi, this is made in India car, and not only targeting the Indian customers, but we are exporting this car to more than 100 countries and regions, including Europe and Japan.
Okay, when does production begin for this in India and Gujarat? When can customers actually book and buy this?
Okay, so production will start in this spring season, and
within this quarter?
Yeah, end of this quarter, beginning of next quarter.
Okay.
That is the first production start timing, and then this car. There are a lot of customers waiting this car from Suzuki. So first we are exporting to the European market. And then right after that, we will start production for Indian market.
Okay, so first Europe and then India. Why not India first?
But actually, for Europe, it will take about 1.5 months for shipping to the European countries. So in order to have about same timing to start the sales.
So can we expect by June customers to get it in India?
Yeah, about that time. Thing I can tell you right now is within 1 year, we will become the biggest EV manufacturer in India.
Within 1 year?
Within 1 year. We will become the biggest EV manufacturer in India.
In terms of sales volumes?
No, in terms of production volume in India, we will be #1 manufacturer.
Okay, and will there be more EVs launched, or currently this is the only car for this calendar year?
Yeah, of course we will, in the pipeline, there are a lot more to come in EV, and we are developing more EVs soon to come.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Takeuchi, what is the amount of time that a person would take to charge this car fully with a fast charger and with a home charger?
For the fast charger, it's about 40 minutes for 80% charge. So you can quickly charge with the fast charger. At home, of course, it will take more than that.
All right. Well, that is the Maruti top boss in conversation with my colleague Parishit. Some of the flashes, of course, at the bottom of the screen. This is Maruti's EV plans here. How should you position yourself in the last hour? Mitesh is with us. Mitesh, good afternoon. I mean, neither here nor there kind of a day, but how would you trade it?
So, Prashant, I think two things. One, the Bank Nifty had still having a big decline. The Nifty has managed to, stay above the lows of 13th of January, which was 23,047 on an intraday basis and 23,085 on a closing basis, and we got a low of 23,100. So I think we are not seeing a fresh breakdown, and I think Reliance is partly responsible for that. It could still be a market which could chop around within 23,100 broadly, give and take 40-50 points, and 23,350 on the upside. The hourly indicators are turning flat, which means that the declining force is mildly reduced for the Nifty, but that is not similar. That is not true for the Bank Nifty. So it's the banking lot which could still see pressure. And my belief is that the banking index could test 48,100, 48,000 again. And if it breaks below that, then we are in for a slightly tough time as well in the financial side.
Absolutely. I mean, the Bank Nifty slide 1.5%. I guess Axis Bank has set in motion a whole chain reaction today. It's taking a lot of the other large banks down with it. Okay, Mitesh, so that's on the indices, individual stocks. What are you trading alongside, short side?
HDFC Life, had a big breakout yesterday and then a pullback. I think it is now clearly showing signs of turning around the short to medium term trend. The stock declined from 750 to about below 600 levels and then has reversed. So by here with a stop at about 633, look for a target of around 660 to begin with, and above that 675 is also very likely. And something very positive is happening on the charts of Hindalco. So Hindalco, I will take a buy with a very tight stop because the market isn't very convenient for long side trades. But this one warrants a buy. So keep a stop at 609. Look for a target of 640.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot for that, Mitesh. Just that point on Hindalco, I remember Novelis had come out with their preliminary, announcement with regard to the Q3 numbers, and it looked very, very disappointing. But we had highlighted that because the stock has corrected big time from the recent peak, the street was prepared for a weakish show, and also the management commentary was Q4 things will still look up. So that's why, when we had covered it on top 10 as well as at 9 a.m. on that particular day, we said that if Hindalco opens up lower, we're expecting some buying interest to come in there. Because of these factors, stock had corrected, the outlook was good as well. So currently, the stock at the high point of the day, Nuvama as well as upgraded the stock. By the way, SBI Life, that's come out with a set of numbers. Net profit up close to around 70% or thereabouts. That stock has moved to the high point of the day. And I think we had a couple of other numbers as well that were flashing. For the time being, the stock is up. But remember, it had a run even post HDFC Life's numbers. And the street was doubting whether the others can perform at par. For the time being, they like what they see, at least the initial numbers that are up for you on the screen. Yash will be joining in to break that down for us. Yes, Ruby?
I'm just quickly, while we flash the other key numbers, let me run through the expectations. New business premium is supposed to rise 8%. The APE growth for SBI Life is expected to be around 12%. And if you look at the value of new business, that's expected 10% as well. And remember, on HDFC Life, the thing was they did so well on VNB margins, despite a lot of the negative headwinds that the sector has been facing. For SBI Life, Yash's poll says that margins could actually contract by 54 basis points. They were supposed to contract even for HDFC Life, but then, they had a blowout performance. Right now, that stock is up and about, rising higher as we speak. Okay, We'll get you more on the numbers as they come through. We've got Prakash Diwan now joining in. Prakash, actually, let me start with the life insurers. We'll get more numbers in from SBI Life as well. But what do you think? HDFC Life has sparked absolute new excitement in the sector as a whole. Do you like anything here?
Good afternoon, Surbhi. So, yeah, I mean, HDFC Life numbers tell you that the story, irrespective of the regulatory overhang, the changes in regulation that could kind of impede their accelerated growth, is just a blip. And the secular trend is so strong. And then I keep saying, you saw the HDFC numbers, you saw the reaction to SBI Life, and I'm sure the same thing will happen to ICICI as well. So it's very simple. You buy the basket. You don't buy one stock because all of them will behave differently at different phases of their expansion. But nevertheless, the segment gives you enough of this thing. In fact, I would believe a lot of the money that's rotating out of other subparts of the BFSI vertical will find their way into, especially from the broking side and all of that. That's seeming to be a bit softer now. A lot of that money will come into insurance on the institutional side. So definitely, and there's hardly any new paper that's come into this segment. So there will be a little bit of a re-rating given that liquidity that's likely to come. So yeah, very positive on the sector fundamentally, given the huge space that we still have unaddressed and the kind of product innovation that's already coming. And HDFC Life actually demonstrated what a good product mix could do to shore things up. So pretty positive on the sector, but buy a basket is my sincere recommendation.
Okay. All right. That is HDFC Life and SBI Life, the insurers there. Let's quickly move on and talk about Infosys. Of course, Infosys, the numbers weren't bad. In fact, it was a good third quarter for the company. Dollar revenue and constant currency revenue both were above street expectations. And margins were in line as well. The company went ahead and increased their full year guidance along expected lines. So then why such disappointment on the stock? Still down 6%. Rima is here for the fine print.
So, Infosys' numbers, the headline numbers were fine, perhaps even slightly better than what the street was anticipating in terms of the Q3 top line, but the internals were disappointing. So let me tell you one. So first we said the revenue growth at 1.7% was ahead of estimates, but this was driven by a higher pass-through, which basically means that Infosys bought third-party items and sold it to the clients. There is no value add or service that Infosys provides on that, and that, according to some analysts, this third-party pass-through revenues boosted their top line by 150 basis points out of the 170 basis points growth that the company had. And the next quarter, this pass-through is not going to be there to this extent, which basically means Q4 revenues are going to see a drop. In fact, if you look at the company's guidance, we have the full year numbers, 4.5% to 5%. We have the numbers in the first 9 months. So in Q4, if you do the math, the company is anticipating a degrowth of -2% to 0%. That's the implied Q4 growth. Again, on account of fewer working days, some furloughs, and lower pass-through revenue. So Q4 is going to be subdued. Also, the next 2 quarters will see an impact of wage hikes on margins. So far, in the first 9 months, the company hasn't given any wage hikes. But in Q4 and in Q4 of this year and Q1 of next year, there will be that wage hike impact. And deal wins, while steady, they haven't accelerated. In fact, on a year-on-year basis, they're still down 22%. That said, brokerages are still very bullish, and they say this is the best play amongst large caps in the current environment. So Bernstein, Morgan Stanley, Jefferies, HSBC, all very bullish on Infosys.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Rima. Prakash Diwan is still with us. Prakash, what do you make of this one? Infosys, for the time being, the street is selling into it. But if you want to look at a positive, the stock this morning was, I think it opened up at around 1830. It's not seen a recovery, but it's not fallen drastically. It's not fallen off the cliff like HCL Tech. Your view on the name at around this 1810, 1820 rupee mark?
So, Nigel, I might sound repetitive, but when the numbers came in yesterday afternoon, Rima and we discussed that briefly as a first reaction, and everything seemed very positive. It's just that, the semantics of this pass-through on the revenue side is disappointing a few people. But, the way I look at it, if they're anyways up the higher end of the guidance, there is absolutely no concern how the revenue gets the same. At least the profitability is not getting impacted, even if the revenue does. And typically December end is the quarter where there's always a struggle. The number of working days available and all of that is much lesser. So I think if they can cover that up and the kind of recruitment that's probably on the cards, there is no reason to get concerned in the long term. I mean, the March end numbers could probably be here and there. And remember, the announcement from the Trump administration, which we were talking right at the start of the show, I mean, that is still a joker in the pack. If those things upset the apple cart, there's no reason why these stocks will not get, re-rated downwards. But if everything goes off well, especially on the, regulation around immigration and all of that, you could probably see a new virtuous cycle begin. So I don't think the reaction needs to be this severe, but out of the top three, the top four large names, Infosys definitely stands out to have better metrics to catch up. Whatever this fall today is probably an opportunity for long-term investors as well.
Okay.
All right. Prakash, I was looking, Indigo has corrected a fair bit. It's down almost from 5,000, I think 5,000 rupees, a little over 5,000 was the high. Basically lost about 1,000 rupees now. Any thoughts on this one here?
So, Prashant, Indigo has gone through a little bit of, the first sell-off that happened was on account of the shortage of aircraft. Now, that is something which is plaguing the entire industry. There was this hope that Indigo would be able to kind of transit to, the wet leases that they have actually announced from the Boeing, make rather than just depend on Airbus. But that still hasn't kind of come into play in terms of, translating into number of flights getting added and all. And what's also happened is towards the latter part of the quarter, you had crude playing a bit, naughty in that sense, because you had a very stable range-bound behavior from crude all this time, and suddenly crude started kind of firming up, and that is something which also kind of does impact their metrics. But having said that, the market share, and there's this whole thing that Vistara and Air India are going through, that's still giving them enough time to build their market share and manage through that. People keep complaining about Indigo, but the number of flights that they have taking off every day is so high that the complaints will also tend to be high. But as a percentage, if you see, they're still doing much better on all of that. So I'm a big believer in the fact that this airlines, given its cost efficiencies, could continue to do very well going forward as the expansion gets underway. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up scaling back that all-time high and going beyond that. But it will not be a smooth ride, So there will be air pockets, there will be a little bit of bumps here and there. But end of the day, this is a play that if you had to look at aviation, there's no better play than this.
Okay, all right. That's Interglobe Aviation. So, Prakash, we've discussed the air. Now let's discuss the road. And I'm probably sure you knew this question was coming, right? Because we've discussed Mahindra and Mahindra way back in the day, and you were very early on that call. But now look at the excitement that's building up around Maruti. And the market's taking some positioning around it as well, because the stock's done well in January when everything seems to be struggling. What do you think of the e-Vitara, the promise of more launches, the fact that the December sales numbers were good for Maruti? Is there something building here? Or is it just flash in the pan?
No. Definitely, there's a lot of promise. Look at the evolution of Maruti's electric vehicle foray. They always stuck to the this thing. They were very close to the knitting in their core. This thing of CNG vehicles. They kept on ramping that up. In fact, they had such amazing leadership. Nobody else has a portfolio which is so impressive of fast-moving, variants in the CNG side. But then they said we'll get into the hybrid space, and that also was a very big fillip of sorts because the arrangement with Toyota was actually doing so well. The need for electric vehicles is precipitated because Europe is a massive market for them, and to make sure that they don't lose out on their presence out there, and it's more of a Suzuki play naturally. So they've started using that this thing. But in India, they've probably timed it in a way that they waited for the charging infrastructure to get in place. Well, Maruti is more massy, and if they were to sell cars in smaller tier 2, tier 3 towns as well, they need charging infrastructure to reach those places. So that's something which will now happen. So I don't think this is a flash in the pan, and I'm sure they'll keep launching various price points in that. In fact, it's time for Tata Motors to get a bit worried because they will possibly, look at getting into the same market space very soon. But with their new launches, is a bit high end and it's going to be very niche. So I don't think there's any impact on that yet. But let's see. It's still some time, and my sense is it's only after June we see the kind of rollout and all that things will start looking different. But yes, it's quite positive from a long-term perspective.
All right, Prakash, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Good speaking with you this Friday afternoon. We'll take a break. We are going to come back. Market's still there, about 90 points lower. As we slip into that break, here's some good news for our viewers. India's business news leader is now a click away, introducing CNBC-TV18's all-new app. Instant access to breaking news, in-depth articles, financial world updates at your fingertips. Download the app from the Apple Store or Google Play, or just scan the QR code on your screen now. Okay, welcome back. We got, 80-point cut on the Nifty. 23,230 is where we are at. Jitendra Sriram is with us, Senior Fund Manager at Baroda BNP Paribas Mutual Fund. Jitendra, good to have you with us here. Monday night, or when we wake up on next Tuesday and see the headlines, it'll be either of 2 or 3 or 4 things. Either, Donald Trump will go big on day one with massive tariffs. Yeah. That's the worst case. I mean, on day one. More gradual stuff like we saw in 2017, I think maybe a little more palatable. But what is your sense, Jitendra? Because it could be big in that sense, one way or the other.
Sure. I think, so his assuming office on 20th, I think I would not expect an immediate big bang. But I think the next 30-odd days will promise to be fairly interesting because, the kind of announcements, the direction of what the US does is going to be very, very interesting. So my take is one part is that, you are obviously going to see certain amount of tariffs And, market expectation may be very narrow, targeted. But the point is, trade rerouting is a very real risk. You've seen what happened in something like solar panels and stuff, where when one country was banned, it got rerouted through other countries and stuff like that. It might be a little bit more broad-based, is my sense, to make sure that, that entire premise of MAGA, that make America great again, plays out.
No, so you're saying it'll be gradual, like perhaps.
I think it will be more gradual, but I think it will be a little bit more broad-based, is what I'm saying. That it may not be very specific; it might be more directed. But what one may need to consider is the after effects of that first announcement. How people react to it, whether people use it to probably insulate themselves by engineering a currency depreciation, or they use certain other means to, downtone that risks, etc. We'll need to watch out that after effects after that.
I was saying this earlier. Markets broadly in November going into the election result underestimated Trump winning, right? But in terms of estimating what he will do, I'm not sure whether they are underestimating it very much. To that point about gradual tariffs, right? I think we have a clue in terms of how markets may behave, because there was that Washington Post article which essentially said that the team is considering small monthly increase in tariffs, overall tariff rates. The dollar sold off very quickly on those headlines. So if it is gradual, we actually may. We have that as an example fairly recently about what markets may do. So let's hope it is that and he doesn't go big on day one. But markets here specifically, Jitendra, any quick thoughts?
So broadly, from what I can see, I think there is generally nervousness near term, especially on the global macro funds with relation to, the dollar strength, with relation to the fact that monetary easing per se seems to be getting a little bit more distant. And especially if tariffs is the way to go for the US, the point is it is going to be inflationary. So to an extent, that also pushes back all the, the easing expectations somewhat. So I would say that those will be the two major things to watch out for, that what is the implications on inflation of all that they do. And the other part, I think, is that one should be fairly, one thing is reasonably certain. Tighter fisc, easier monetary may play out in the longer term. So the near term will be one about tariffs, but longer term, even to ensure American, competitiveness in manufacturing, they will try and engineer a little bit of weakness in the currency. So from a structural perspective, I would think a tighter fisc, weaker monetary might be the way to go.
Hi, Jitendra. Good afternoon and good to see you, Ben. Jitendra, I wanted to ask you about these Axis Bank's numbers. That's been the big problem pocket today, because suddenly the street has got even more nervous on banking names. We had a couple of days of a pullback and that's got sold into. And even stocks like Kotak Mahindra that come out of that set of numbers, it was looking strong all through this week. And suddenly today it's weak because of maybe some kind of read-through, some kind of rub-off. Your view?
Sure. So I think on banking, two things are happening. One trade, which probably you referred to, which was showing the strength, I think, is that the tighter liquidity conditions led to some kind of gravitation away from the NBFC segment into the banks, because banks generally have a better deposit franchise compared to the NBFC segment. So that was one trade that was playing out a week, 10 days before all these events happened. The second, I think, which is happening is that I think the growth, people are getting a little bit concerned because of the continuing elevated LD ratios for the banking system. So, RBI has expressed this concern that they do want to see some tone down in these LD ratios. And my take is that if they don't come off, then, the other casualty as a collateral damage could be the growth aspect. You may not see too much of NII growth then coming through for the banking system. I think a lot of that reaction which is happening now is probably an aftershock of that.
Okay. All right. Just hold your view, Jitendra. We'll come back to you. Actually, want to discuss autos with you and what your stance is over there. And why not? Because we have, the largest ever, event that we have, the annual date that the auto sector has with New Delhi. That's actually become the Bharat Global Mobility Expo, or the Bharat Mobility Global Expo as it's being called now. It has kicked off. We have actually Parikshit joining in. He just got us snippets of the conversation with the Maruti Suzuki management. Parikshit, so lots of excitement. What's new and what are you looking out for over the next, I think, two days, right? It's a 2-day event.
It's a 2-day event, definitely. Right now, I am at the Hero MotoCorp Auto Expo. It's just about great big bikes, luxury cars, and beautiful concept vehicles. Here you've got the Extreme 250, which has been launched. These are completely new vehicles. You've got the X-Pulse 210. Now, these are one of the highest selling premium motorcycles from Hero MotoCorp, and these have received major upgrades. In fact, premiumization is going to be a big push from Hero MotoCorp in 2025. Let's show you more. In fact, the Hero MotoCorp CEO Niranjan Gupta also said that we will see a lot of action on the VIDA space or the electric scooter space as well. Harley Davidson's on display. This is to show that the Hero MotoCorp Harley Davidson commitment is growing. But one vehicle which is very interesting and I want to show you very quickly is a prototype that Hero MotoCorp had showcased some years ago called the Surge. Now this is literally a 2-in-1 vehicle. I'm going to sit in it right now. Okay, all right, I'm not allowed to sit in it, but it's production ready. You can actually detach the scooter from here. If you can see, this is a scooter. You can detach from it and you can use the scooter independently. Otherwise, the scooter remains fixed to the body and you can use it as a passenger vehicle, 3-wheeler. You can use it as a passenger vehicle, cargo as well. This was a prototype until a few years ago. Now it's absolutely ready. Now, see, this is a cargo variant of the EV Surge vehicle that Hero MotoCorp has showcased. We're told that it will go on sale sometime in 2025. The company not allowing us to sit right now. Okay, now I've been told I can sit on this. So here we have it. So I'm sitting in the Hero Surge right now. This is a passenger vehicle. I can literally detach the scooter front and move ahead. So it can be used for e-commerce, it can be used for deliveries, and even if a person wants to use the scooter for his home use, they can do that. How it appeals to a customer, that is something that remains to be seen. But this is definitely one of the interesting concepts that we're seeing at the Bharat Mobility Expo. More than 100 launches over the next 2 days. And let's not forget, the Chinese company BYD, which is the biggest EV seller in the world today, is also making a return to the Auto Expo. They'll make a big splash tomorrow. They've got a electric SUV which is being launched. VinFast, the Vietnam company which is into electric vehicles, they'll be making their India debut tomorrow as well. So lots of action at the Auto Expo.
Okay, all right, Parikshit, thanks very much for that. So yes, plenty of new launches, premiumization, upgrades and more. Thank you for getting us the latest. So let's go back to our expert now. There's Parikshit who's got a busy day and probably a busy tomorrow as well ahead of him. Let's go back to our expert. Jitendra, what's your stance on autos? What do you like here?
No, we like the entire consumer-oriented product slate, which is even the two-wheelers and the passenger cars. For example, across various portfolios, we'd have both the listed passenger car vehicles as well as some of the two-wheeler names that are there. And this is something, if you look at even today, there is some talk of the next wage commission hikes. Typically, they augur well for both these segments as well. So you will have an ammunition coming in from that as well, as the central government employees and various states follow suit on these wage commission awards.
No, absolutely. And more money, maybe, right, in the hands of government servants. We'll take a break here. Thank you very much, Jitendra, for joining us, and good speaking with you. As always, we come back after the break. Lots of earnings that we want to get to in a bit from now. So Wipro will report numbers. There'll be Kotak Bank, which will report numbers tomorrow, and more. We'll also get you a quick D Street Chatter check with Nimesh and some trading ideas as well. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Markets have slipped yet again, just a wee bit in the last few minutes. SBI has moved to the day's low yet again. It was trying to pull back, and SBI Life is the other one as well that saw an initial pop-up, but that as well has moved a little bit lower. But it's that time of the day when Nimesh is standing by to give us an insight in what he's picking up in D-Street chatter. Nimesh, take it away.
Hi, Rajan. It's the financials which is putting pressure on the Nifty today. So again, a down day. The FIs are better sellers, but it's a broader market again which is relatively outperforming. So a lot of individual names in the broader markets are again buzzing in trade, and seems like the actions there's a bit of interest back as well in some of those momentum stocks. I guess from a sector point of view, quietly the PSU stocks have seen a bit of a bounce back in the last many days, and there is buying interest as well. For a change, telecom has seen a bit of buying, bid interest from large institutions. So good amount of buying in the telecom stocks is what I understand from the larger institutional investors. I guess earnings and global macros, once Trump takes over, that will be the very crucial triggers to watch out for next week, and that will set the tone for India market as well. But I guess technically, I've been saying for a while now that 23,300 is a very crucial level to watch out for. If that gets taken out, you will see a very sharp, upside in the very near term. So that's the level to watch. But I guess broadly, the pressure seems to be today within the financial names.
Okay, got that, Nimesh. What about individual stocks? What's the scoop on them?
Well, so the first name on my list today is Fusion Micro. In a weak market where the financials are under pressure, that stock is buzzing in trade. Volumes are on the higher side. Looks like some HN interest is back as well. For Fusion Micro or Fusion Finance, there are a couple of triggers to watch out for. One, the fundraising via rights issue, and two, the appointment of a new CEO. That's something around the corner, is the buzz there in Fusion Finance. So that's the first name. The second stock is Manappuram Finance. The stock is in the ban, but a lot of cash-based buying happening. A lot of FI investors seems to be active buyers as well. And again, in Manappuram Finance, there is a very strong indication that maybe some large corporate announcement could be around the corner there. So that's the second name. The third stock is K Fintech. Within the ancillaries to capital market, this stock has seen a bit of underperformance in the last 15-20 days, largely on back of selling pressure. I understand a leading FI investor has been an aggressive seller in K Fintech at this level. So that's the reason why that stock is underperforming. And the last stock is CG Power. Even that stock has sharply corrected from the highs, 50-week highs. And at these levels now, some bit of interest seems to be back. So a bit of buying is back, and I understand a domestic mutual fund is active buyer in CG Power.
Okay, all right, interesting list there. By the way, Nimesh, that Nazara board meeting is on Monday?
It's on Monday, yes, 28th. Yeah.
It's on Monday. Okay, stocks up about 1.25%. But this is an interesting list, new list that we will keep an eye out on. Thank you very much for that. Mitesh is back with us with what he'd like you to do in terms of trades. Mitesh, what do you have?
I have a STVT on HUL. I think that's something which is closing near the day's low. So STVT here with a stop at about 23.63 and a target of 23.30 can be looked at. And the other one is JSW Energy, which is also, which is actually broken out in the last 15-20 minutes. But yeah, the chart structure has become weak. So STVT here with the stop just above levels of 575 and a target of 560 can be looked at.
Got it. All right, Mitesh, thanks a lot for that. Well, let's hop across to Yash, who's all set for the weekend. But before he gets into the weekend, he's joining us to tell us about SBI Life's numbers. Yash, the street, I think, reads it as a good set of numbers. Do you think it was as good?
Well, Nigel, it's 2-on-2 for the life insurance company, HDFC Life. Of course, the street wasn't anticipating much, but the numbers turned out well. And the same goes for SBI Life as well. The numbers, the read looks good at this point of time. 5 key numbers, all 5 looking good. The result in one line would be in line to positive. First one to start with, new business premium, that is come in line. The growth on a year-on-year basis is about 8%. The number that we are looking at is about 10,530 crore rupees. Total annualized premium equivalent, that has come ahead of estimates. The growth is 13%. The number that we're looking at is about 6,940 crore rupees. Retail annualized premium equivalent, it's in line with what the street was estimating. The growth here again is 13% at about 6,450 crore rupees. Finally, coming to the two most important numbers, value of new business. Again, the number is ahead of estimates on the VNB side, a growth of 11%, and the margin. Importantly, the street was looking at a compression of about 54 basis points when the margins are concerned, but the compression is much smaller than that, about 45 basis points on a year-on-year basis. So that would also go down well as far as the margins for SBI Life Insurance are concerned.
Okay, 2 out of 2 And more, of course, will report as the weeks go by. I mean, next week, I think we'll see more. But let's talk about numbers yet to come out. Kotak Bank will report numbers tomorrow. Let's get a quick preview going. Abhishek is here with that. Abhishek, over to you.
Well, Prashant, to begin with, Kotak Mahindra Bank's P&L can be on the weaker side as analysts are estimating the net interest margin to be at 11-quarter low. Watch out for the business momentum, that is deposits and advances. Nomura estimates deposit growth of 15% YOY and 2% quarter-on-quarter. They also estimate the loan growth to be at 14% YOY and about 3% quarter-on-quarter. The net interest margin can decline both YOY and quarter-on-quarter. Again, Nomura estimates net interest margin at 4.85% when compared to 5.22% on a year-on-year basis and about 4.91% on a sequential basis. So this 4.85 is perhaps at 11-quarter low. We need to watch out for the low-cost deposit momentum. Every lender is losing on CASA ratio. CASA ratio for Kotak Mahindra Bank in the previous quarter was about 43.6%. Now, slippages can remain elevated for, some of the unsecured portfolio that is there, which is credit card, personal loans, as well as unsecured loans. So personal loans, analysts are pegging that the slippages may taper off post Q3. Asset quality to see marginal hiccups. So Motilal Oswal estimates gross NPA ratio of 1.56% when compared to 1.49% in the previous quarter. They also estimate the net NPA ratio to be at 0.46 versus 0.43% in the previous quarter. Watch out for the management commentary and outlook. That will be important on two key parameters, that is the business momentum and credit cost guidance that they intend to give. Any update with respect to RBI diktat that is there on them, that will also be seen closely from the investors' point of view. Our polls suggest NII growth of 9% YOY and about 1.8% sequentially. We are working with a profit growth of 9.5% YOY and a decline of 1.7% on a sequential basis. Back to you.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Abhishek. Well, let's hop across to Hemang Jani, who joins us to have a quick chat. Hi, Hemang. Good afternoon. Good to see you in. Your view first on Kotak Mahindra Bank. We'll wait by for the numbers. But if you talk about stocks that didn't move at all, and actually have underperformed the market, this is one name that comes to mind. Your view, what's the risk reward at around the 1,750 rupees?
So good afternoon, Nigel. I think for banks, the market is already working with very low expectations. And I think 75% of the banks have already kind of either given preview or they have already announced the numbers. And what is very clear is that there is not much of growth. The only good takeaway, as I see it, that there is no major, accident or, the credit cost related issues or slippages related issues, except maybe Axis Bank. So I think Kotak would be no different. We all know there are also restrictions that have been imposed by RBI on the new, client onboarding. So I think the street would focus more on when that ban could get lifted. So I think banks overall, we think that short term looks a bit dull, but from a valuation standpoint, surely looks quite okay. Either State Bank of India or maybe ICICI Bank, which has been consistently delivering. I think this is the time to kind of look at it from a, investment perspective.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let's talk about a couple of other names then, Hemang. What about Nazara Tech? There is some speculation that maybe, in fact, they're going to be doing some fundraise and, various names doing the rounds. What's your view on it? Actually, the stock ran away and then it's gone through a long phase of consolidation. Your view on the stock?
So, Nigel, not tracking this one, but there has been a talk of fundraise and a new investor coming into the company. Also, a bit of a GST relief that we saw for, Nazara and Delta Corp, but then it did not really make too much of an impact on the stock per se. So high beta stock, very niche company. So those who have an appetite for online gaming or, a little niche kind of a play, this could be a, stock to look at, but no coverage, no view as such.
Okay. All right. Got it. By the way, today, Macrotech Developers has had a pretty good session, and that's thanks to a note that came in from Kotak. I think pretty optimistic out there. And Macrotech, the last time I checked, was up about 5%. Yeah, 4.5%, 5% even now. Hemang, hi, good afternoon. Good to have you on. Thoughts on Macrotech or maybe DLF? I mean, any of the large developers that are benefiting from this boom in luxury housing. Do you think there's more to go on the upside?
I think the stocks have corrected, in the last, let's say, couple of months. And if you look at the Lodha Macrotech, I think the management is looking quite positive in terms of, the fresh sales, whatever guidance they have put out. Palava has already seen land transactions at 120 million per acre. And overall, the sense is that, in some of the pockets like Pune, Bangalore, things can be a little better in terms of, the pricing and the fresh sales. So we do like this space, particularly the deeper correction that we have seen is providing a good entry point in names like Macrotech, maybe DLF. It would be definitely, it would make sense to go for these names.
Okay, all right. Got that. Hemang, stay on. Some more stocks to track. Aurobindo Pharma has been buzzing in trade after Investec initiated coverage on the stock. They have a high conviction, sort of outlook in the short term at least. We have Vinny joining in with the details. Stocks higher. What is Investec saying, Vinny?
So yes, Investec is positive on this one. Maybe a short-term idea saying high conviction, short-term idea is what they're indicating. Target price of 1,930 rupees per share. Now, they believe that second half of the year for FY25 would be better than the first half of the year. And that would lead and aid the re-rating for Aurobindo Pharma. Apart from that, they're highlighting that, rupee depreciation is what we've seen coming in. Now, for Aurobindo Pharma, most of the sales come in as export sales, and that is 80% of the contribution is exports. And out of that, more than 50% comes in from US export sales. So yes, considerable amount in terms of rupee depreciation. That is something that benefits Aurobindo Pharma. Other key highlights and points that actually turn out to be positive triggers for margin expansion going forward is something that they highlighted as well. One is the upcoming Pen-G ramp up. That is a positive one for Aurobindo Pharma, normalizing of UGR sales, a stable as well as an improving US pricing outlook in terms of the pricing pressure we have seen in the recent times. That has been stable or started to see a bit of an improvement. So that is positive for Aurobindo Pharma and will lead to a margin expansion going forward. This will drive profitability for the company, and Investec is highlighting that this could possibly lead to a double-digit EBITDA CAGR growth is what one could expect going forward. So that's why positive cues coming in, and Aurobindo Pharma is around seeing a gain of around 2% in trade as of now.
Okay, all right. Do you track this one, Hemang, Aurobindo? Vinny, thank you for that.
Yeah, Prashant. In fact, this quarter, while we are all, struggling to find names where there can be, decent growth, pharma and healthcare would be one pocket where we are expecting about 18-19% kind of a growth. For Aurobindo also, we are looking at about 16% kind of a operating profit growth. The stock had actually corrected very recently. But I think when you look at the product pipeline, particularly on the US side, things are looking quite stable. So positive view on Aurobindo and some of the other names in pharma, maybe Lupin, Sun Pharma. I think quarterly numbers there are going to be quite decent.
All right. No, absolutely. I think the thing with Aurobindo, especially, with we don't know about tariffs, etc., is that if you look at Indian companies with actual manufacturing capacities in the US, I think Aurobindo will have the largest capacities, onshore in US, selling to the US market as opposed to sort of, making here and then selling into the US. Stocks, of course, corrected from 1,500-1,600 rupee levels, now finding a little bit of stability, up 2%. We'll take a quick commercial break here. There's, 11 minutes to go for market closing. Hemang is with us. See you on the other side.
When you started Kabaddi, you said you'd have to work 2 years and do a couple of films to be able to fund that.
Yes.
How much more do you need to do on the film side to be able to fund this?
Well, thankfully, I've moved on from that thought process. I realized about 2-3 years into Kabaddi and football that signing innumerable films to finance my love for sport and the business of sport was not something which I was very happy doing.
Or sustainable?
It is sustainable. It might not be a lot of fun. I started up my family office. I streamlined the finances. It's taken me about 7 years. But thankfully now
You've got a healthy balance sheet to be able to fund this.
we have a balance sheet and allocated funds through my family office that I can run a sporting business. And I will turn heaven and earth upside down to make sure it's profitable.
So what's the path to profitability?
A conservative figure is 5 years. I'd like to try for 3.
Welcome back. 6 minutes for the day and the week to wind down, and the Nifty is nursing a cut of about 113 points. The culprits are the same, and that hasn't changed from the morning. Axis Bank's numbers have taken the whole banking sector down, and Infosys is weighing on the entire IT pack, 6% down on Infosys today. And Reliance has, of course, been the big batter of fighting on the top. Hemang, on IT, what is the positioning? Not just large cap, but we've got some mid cap numbers as well, right? We've heard from L&T Tech, we've heard from Mastech, and a bunch of others. Would you look at adding anything tactically to the portfolio, if not a medium-term sort of a portfolio pick, but just a tactical addition?
I think the only issue with the IT pack is that the stocks had run up, a lot before the numbers, and people had slightly, higher expectations about, the Trump being there, the IT sector in US looking good, discretionary spend on the, improvement, so on and so forth. The actual numbers, by and large, while the deal inflow has been good, when you look at the guidance per se, the upgrades have not been that great. There are some issues, relating to margins. So I think mid-cap is where one should be pinning the hopes, maybe Persistent, or Coforge. Let's see how they are, talking about their growth going ahead. Otherwise, in terms of large cap IT names, though the numbers are good, at this level, it doesn't really make sense to really make a fresh entry unless they correct significantly from here on.
By the way, I just want to point out that even for the mid-cap index, the gains are not sustaining. Let's pull up the mid-cap index chart. It's as choppy as the Nifty's chart today. And you can see now as we're getting towards the close, it's again coming towards the flat line. The gain is just about 0.2% now on the mid-cap index. Though it's been a good day for PSUs. That's been the clear hallmark of today's trading action. NBCC, Hoodco, RVNL, SJVN, entire gamut of stocks there on the PSU side. They've done well. PSE index retaining a bulk of those gains. Hemang, PSUs, maybe it's some cheer ahead of the budget. Hopefully, more capex announcements. Again, even if it's a trade, short-term trade, would you buy in anything on the PSU side?
Yeah, Surbhi, I think some of the defense names, HAL, PEL, are something that I would be comfortable, buying into, not only because of the budget per se, but they are kind of fundamentally looking quite good. There has been a, decent amount of order inflow operationally, doing pretty well. Stocks have corrected, so they do provide a good entry point. Also, some of the metal PSUs, Nalco in particular, even the way some of the base metal prices have recovered, I do think that Nalco also would be a good bet because, the stocks have corrected quite a lot, and from current price point, they do provide a good risk reward.
No, absolutely. And we'll have to kind of look at some of this stuff as we go along. I think you got moves coming through in some MFI names. I'm not sure. Names like Satin, if you can pull that up. That is moving up. I saw a sharp move on Satin Credit Care. But apart from that, none of the others really at this point in time. What else? Suntech is up, a big mover, 8% gain today coming through. We were talking about real estate earlier, big correction in Suntech from 800 levels. It had dropped to about 450 and it's recovered about 10% from the recent lows basically. Manappuram is another interesting one. It was part of Nimesh's chatter earlier. Again, I mean, a low in October was about $140, back to just 5 rupees short of 200 now. 4 days back, stock was at 170. So it's really starting to pick up a little bit after the damage it has seen. And of course, names like Aeroflex, which reported numbers day before yesterday evening, 10% yesterday and 8% today this morning, today as well. By the way, HAL, Bharat Dynamics, some of these defense companies are also doing quite well. Any thoughts on Manappuram specifically, Hemang?
Prashant, on and off, we do hear about the news that, one of the large investors could come in, maybe Bain Capital, and the management has already denied. I think this news came in November. The management has denied it, but you keep hearing in the market. I think it would be good to sort of wait for the actual news before, preempting it and then going through a bit of volatility. In terms of pure fundamentals, I do feel that some of the gold finance companies are better placed because we all know that, microfinance, unsecured loans, personal loans, there are issues and you don't know when the growth will come back. But I think these companies, both in terms of growth and asset quality and valuation, are better placed. So yes, Manappuram from a, small allocation perspective is looking quite positive.
Okay, all right. Got that, Hemang. Thank you very much. We'll let you go on that note. Thanks for being with us. The week is ending. It's been a week of consolidation for the index. So the good news for the bulls is that at least the lows of the week have been protected and they've not been tested also. The last 3 days we've been consolidating, but roughly above the 23,100 mark. In fact, today the close is probably going to be closer to around the 23,200 mark. So let's take a look at where the problem was, because for what it's worth, Nifty is still down 100 points. Limit on IT and banks. Infosys about 5.5% lower. It took down Wipro, Tech Mahindra, and a bunch of other IT stocks with it. HCL Tech was also lower. But the bigger problem for the market was the 1.5% slide on the bank Nifty. It started with the Axis Bank results. That stock is ending down 4.5%. But even the others, Kotak is down 2.5%. It reports numbers over the weekend. There's ICICI Bank, which is lower. There's SBI, which is lower as well. It was Reliance fighting on